From the Library of Congress in Washington, D.C.
It is my pleasure and honor today to introduce an author as well as an illustrator. He goes by the name of Bryan Collier. Mr. Collier was raised in Pocomoke City near the southern border of the Maryland Eastern Shore. As a child, he had a great collection of quality children's books that his mom would give him. She was a Head Start teacher. Go, Mom. He said that he wouldn't read the books at first. He would only look at the images to tell him the story. Mr. Collier didn't just stop there. He continued his love of books by creating his own images. And while in high school, he won first place in a congressional competition, and a painting was displayed here at the Library of Congress in the Capitol building for approximately a year. Mr. Collier said that one of the biggest reasons for wanting to become a part of children's books was because of an experience he had in 1995 at a bookstore where the books he saw didn't look like or feel like or sound like him or his children. He thought he could do better, so that's what he did and worked toward that. He did exactly what he said he would do, and he wrote and illustrated a book entitled Uptown for beginner readers from the age of 3 to 6. Today, Mr. Collier is very active at the Harlem Horizon Art Studio in New York City, where he was once a program director there for 12 years, but now he serves as a volunteer. He believes that it is important to be a positive role model for kids. He also spends time visiting schools to talk to teachers, librarians, and students about books and art. Mr. Collier has received numerous awards and recognition for his works. The Ezra Keats Award for Uptown in 2000 to honor new illustrators, the Coretta Scott King Award in 2000 to honor African-American authors and illustrators who create outstanding books for children and young adults, the Caldecott Medal in 2002, 6, and 2011 for Distinguished American Picture Books for Children, and this year, for his lifetime contribution, Mr. Collier was the United States nominee for the Hans Christian Andersen Award for living authors and illustrators who complete works who have made a lasting contribution to children's literature. Ladies and gentlemen, please help me welcome to the podium Mr. Bryan Collier.
Hello, good morning, everyone, and good afternoon to everyone and all the children. It is great to see you here. All the families, it's great to see you here today. We got a short window of time, but we're going to put everything that I can in this time here. So, again, my name is Bryan Collier. I'm an author and illustrator of picture books, and I want to talk about a few books today. I want to start with the very first in the beginning. It's this book called Uptown. Now, my inspiration as an artist and a picture book maker is there was this book that came home that my mother brought home. It was Snowy Day, Whistle for Willie, and Harold and the Purple Crayon. She brought these books home. And that boy, Peter, I opened up the book and Peter looked back at me. And I was 4. I didn't know what that was, but I know what it felt like. I looked in through the book, and Peter was wearing my pajamas on a snowy day. And I grew up on the eastern shore of Maryland, and so we all know what snowy days. I know you guys know, because you don't have to go to work when it snows out here. So this book resonated with me, and I was the youngest of 6, so I knew what it was like to wanted to play with the big kids. So I knew what Peter was doing, and it felt like this book was just me. It was about me, and it was for the first time I saw me in a book. Ezra Keats did that for me. So, and Harold. Remember Harold and the Purple Crayon? Do you remember what that boy's head was shaped like? Well, look at me, I'm Harold. You didn't know that? Harold was amazing with that crayon, and I've been chasing that magic ever since I was 4. Because, you know, he hung that moon in the sky in that book. That's amazing. It's without words. And all Harold wanted to do was go home and get home. And when he finally reached home and he climbed in the bed and the crayon hit the floor, that was just absolutely divine. And so I said, well, I'm going to make a picture book. This is 1989. I said, after I graduated from Pratt Institute, I said, I'm going to make a picture book. And I don't know who to talk to, but I'm going to go door to door to every publishing house that will listen. So for 7 years, I dropped off a portfolio to any publishing house that would listen. For 7 years, once a week I did it, until someone said, okay, we see him coming, so we got to give him a shot somewhere, you know. So they finally did, and lo and behold, they said, we want you to write and illustrate it and tell us what you know. Tell us your story. So it was this book called Uptown. That's it right there. And the little boy on the cover, that's my nephew. His name is Justin White. He was, I think, 8 years old then, and he must be 26 years old now. And so this kid has grown up with a book about himself. And lo and behold, if you see that little gold seal, there's Ezra Jack Keats and that little boy in that jumper. The book went full circle. I got the first Ezra Jack Keats Award ever given for my very first book. And so it went, that's my nod to Ezra Jack Keats, that traffic signal right there. I'm tipping my hat to where it all really, really started. And so, you know, the story goes like this. We're going to go through a bunch of books, but it's this book. If you could just listen with your mind and your heart, it goes like this. He says, Uptown is a caterpillar. Well, it's really the Metro North as it eases over the Harlem River. He says, Uptown is chicken and waffles served around the clock. At first, it seems like a weird combination, but it works. And Uptown is a row of brownstones. I like the way they come together when you look at them down the block. They look like they're made of chocolate. Oh, look closer, look closer. Uptown is weekend shopping on 125th Street. The vibe is always jumping as people bounce to their own rhythms. He says, Uptown is a stage. The Apollo Theater has showcased the greatest entertainers in the world. I hope we get good seats. Uptown is jazz. My grandfather says jazz and Harlem are a perfect match, just like chicken and waffles. That's what he said. Can you taste it? Uptown is a barbershop. It's a place where last night's ball game could be more important than what style haircut you want. Uptown is a Van der Zee photograph. I saw a picture from before my dad was even born, a picture of my grandparents' wedding day. Yeah. Uptown is summer basketball at the Rutgers. Anyone can rise up and be a superstar for a day. I see you. Hello. Uptown is canvas awnings on the windows to block the sun. It's like the buildings are all dressed up. Stay with me, we're almost there. Uptown is little sisters. They're on their way to church in matching yellow dresses. The question's gonna come up in a minute. Uptown is the orange sunset over the Hudson River. That means it's time for the street lights to come on, for me to get home and get changed. Now the question is, what is this kid getting changed to do? To go to bed, someone said, that's a great guess, but that's not it. Didn't he say earlier, I hope we get good seats? Oh, y'all sharp, you're so sharp. Uptown is a song sung by the Boys Choir of Harlem. Each note floats through the air and lands like a butterfly. Now, why is the word butterfly so important there? Well, the first line of the book was Uptown's a caterpillar, butterfly. Okay. All right. Let's get there. Let's get there. Uptown is Harlem, Harlem world, my world. Uptown is home. Uptown is home. Harold was trying to get home. Peter was trying to get home. I've done many types of books. The Langston Hughes poem, I Too Am America. Very sparse poem, but speaks volumes. What it means to be invisible. I too am America. You might have heard of this gentleman. His name, they called him Dave, the potter. Enslaved potter out of Edgefield, South Carolina, 200 years ago, wrote poetry on the outside of clay pots on the plantation. He said, I wonder where is all my relations, friendship to all in every nation. That's what he wrote on a pot. He signed it and boldly signed his name, Dave, and dated it. Agitating the system. He didn't run away. He wasn't a runaway. He didn't try to escape. He just agitated the system. Speaking about his day 200 years ago. Act of defiance, boldly pronouncing his command of the English language. My question was, if he said, I wonder where is all my relations, friendship to all in every nation, how is Dave talking about another nation if he was born and he died in Edgefield, South Carolina? He never went to another nation. He never left South Carolina. Well, the book is about pottery, slavery, American history, poetry, but it wasn't until I finished the whole process when I discovered it's about literacy. He told his story. Literacy. When you tell your children you got to read and write, that's the only way you'll function in this world. This is what Dave was saying. It's about literacy. It is. Now, here's the book that's recent. It's called Knock Knock. Written by Daniel Beaty, incredible author and actor, Daniel Beaty. I think it's on the screen. Can you see it? Well, I can't, but I'm. Let me know when you see him, the little boy laying down in bed. Is that where we are? So here's this wonderful, beautiful little boy. He and his father, they played this game called Knock Knock, and every day he would pretend that he was asleep, and his father would creep into the room, and he would jump into his papa's arms. Now, there he is. Is that right? He's in his papa's arms. But if you pay attention, the elephants in this boy's room, they march around that kid's room, and they march past bookshelves and a basketball and under a window and under a rainbow. He would jump into his papa's arms. His papa would say, I love you, and he would say, I love you back. They played this game called Knock Knock. And every day they played this game, but one day the knock doesn't come. But the elephants, they remember, they march around the room, past the rainbow, past the bookshelf full of books and the basketball, and they march under a window. And then the next day, the knock doesn't come. And you know what happened? The rainbow fell. That boy's mother guided, raised, groomed, and taught that boy. She loved him, and look, if you see her touch his head, that hand has saved many generations. That's what mothers do. When Jada Pinkett Smith did a book, a photo book called Girls Hold Up This World, that's what we're talking about. So this boy has to figure out his world with only half. He used to play this game called Knock Knock, and one day the knock didn't come. So he goes out into the world. He has to go to school, and he has to navigate this world. And he goes out, and if you pay attention to that blue sky, it's not as blue as it could be. And look at those buildings, they're kind of shaky. See, this boy's world is crumbling all around him. What happened to Papa? What happened to Papa? So here's what he figured. He said, well, here's what happened. Maybe Papa comes when I'm at school, and I miss him every day. So what I'll do is I'll write him a letter. That's what he said. And he wrote his daddy a letter, and he balled it up. And he wrote another one, and he balled it up. If you pay attention to the details, there's a calendar on the wall with red marks for every day that Papa hadn't been there. So he wrote the perfect letter. He said what he had to say in the letter. That's what the boy did. But he did something peculiar. He folded that letter up into a paper airplane, and he tossed the letter out the window into that not so quite blue sky above those crumbling buildings. And he does something peculiar again. He jumps on the plane and takes a ride across the city looking for Papa. In that letter he wrote, he said, Papa, come home because I miss you. He said, come home because I thought you could teach me how to shave one day when I get older, or how to dribble a basketball. That's what the boy wrote in the letter. So he takes a flight into that not so quite blue sky. See, this boy played a game called Knock Knock, and one day the knock didn't come, so he sails across the city, and he sails over the rooftops of the buildings. Can you see it? Are they there? How about now? So, if you look closely at the details, on the rooftop of every building, you'll see a face. Is the next one? There we go. You'll see a face. This boy's story is not an isolated story. This boy is not alone. This story is about loss and how to create a beautiful life for yourself in spite of the loss. Papa loved his son. Hold on, let's keep going. So he says in the letter, he said, Papa, come home because I want to be just like you, but I'm forgetting who you are. And the elephants, they marched on. Papa's face fading in the brownstones, and that plane, the airplane the boy is riding, flies on through that not so quite blue sky. So the letter sails back into the room and lands on the boy's bed, and there he is, isolated in the doorway. Can you see that? And the elephants, they march past construction trucks and bookshelves and under windows and past the basketball and past the sneakers. The elephants, they remembered. He played this game called Knock Knock. And lo and behold, a letter comes from Papa. What does Papa have to say? Papa said, Dear son, I'm sorry I won't be coming home, but take heed to these words that I have for you. So the boy read the letter. Can you see him? He read the letter and read the letter. Papa wrote a lot of stuff on it. He said, please tell your mother to cook those scrambled eggs that we like so much, and please remember to do your homework before you watch TV, and please remember that the best of me still lives in you as long as you do your best. See, the boy read the letter, but I have a question. How could you? Who could leave this prince? This boy is a prince. How could you leave him? How could you leave me? Is the question I had. And who in the world left you? The story's about loss, but how do we figure out how to make a beautiful life for ourselves in spite of the loss? We need to talk about it. For all you educators, Knock Knock is in your classroom. It's sitting in the seats. No one's having dialogue about it. They played this game called Knock Knock, and one day the knock doesn't come. Divorce, death, military obligation, or just gone. Somebody. They played this game. So this boy, he read that letter from Papa, and he folded it up and put it in a box and put it behind the closet. He buried it. He put away childish things. He's growing up, this boy. He played this game called Knock Knock. So there he is. He grew up. He learned how to shave on his own. He went from a boy to a man in that one scene. Can you see that? And there he is in the next page. He owns his own business. Remember those construction trucks when he was a kid? Now he's a builder of community. And look at that blue sky. It's quite brilliantly blue now, right? It's a new day. Papa in that letter said, shave in one direction to avoid irritation. That's what he wrote, Papa said. And he said, dribble the page with the brilliance of your ballpoint pen. That's what Papa said in the letter. He said, knock down doors that I could not. Knock, knock. He said, knock down doors of poverty and racism. Knock, knock. Knock, knock down doors to your beautiful life. That's what Papa wrote in the letter. So this boy grew up into a man, and he's now a builder of community, and he has his own family and his own children, and he wears his own hard hat. Maybe he'll let his boy wear his hat one day as well. And look at that sky and the rhythm and balloons of joy. A brand new day. A brand new day. Knock, knock. They told me that joy comes in the morning. That's what they said. So he says, knock, knock down doors of dreams for yourself, and knock, knock doors. And as you become your best, the best of me still lives in you and this builder of community and family still present. And then something happens. They throw a surprise party for this man, this boy that grew up into a man, and they have a gift. Can you see this party happening? His whole family around him, there's a brown box with a big bow on it. What could be in the box? It better not be Papa in that box. But what could be in the box? They celebrate him, they blindfold him and celebrate him. What could be there? This game called Knock Knock, and lo and behold, it's Papa's hat. And there you see all the letters fall from heaven, and there he is embracing Papa as a man. But if you look closely, is Papa really there? Or is this a memory? Or is this a dream? Or is this time gone by? He used to play this game called Knock Knock. One day, the knock didn't come. But joy, it came in the morning. So, I know that was a heavy book, right? I saw this monologue on HBO, Daniel Beaty, the actor, did. He did a thing called Knock Knock, and I said, that's a book. I called him, I said, let's make a book. I didn't know him. Daniel's father was incarcerated when he was a kid. Daniel's a world-class actor. They've been telling me that he's the next Sidney Poitier. He's doing Paul Robeson on stage now. That's Daniel's life that he did, still unfolding. And these are the kind of stories I like to tell as well. The joy and all that that's in between, that's life, that's sitting in our children's heart and in our classrooms. Listen, thank you for your time. I had so much that I wanted to show you. I had some, I got 7, oh, well, we got time, we have time. We have time. I just think that picture books are so potent, and they speak to our times right now. Like, I did a book called Martin's Big Words. And I hope you can see it. Speaks volumes. Even today. And that's what I adore about talking about history and jumping in feet first with all this information, because there's so much to talk about that we never get to. I can talk about Grandma's hands, how they season us with wisdom and discipline and information. Or we could talk about going from a boy to a man, or for a girl to a woman. Or lastly, but not only, we can talk about finding what we need to find. We We can talk about finding our way when there's no way. And if you look closely, the river runs through her face and through her hands. We're all connected by the river. There was a book called Freedom River that I did. That's what that's a part of. And, oh, this is what I wanted to show you. That Langston Hughes poem, told through the eyes of Pullman porters, speaks volumes of what's happening right now. What happens when you're rendered invisible. Thank you for your time. Oh, anyone have any? Okay, go ahead.
Okay, I will probably never have a chance to say this to you, but I have to tell you about how just important Knock Knock was to my class when we read it.
Okay.
When we read it, after we read it, like 3 of my kids had told me that their parents are in jail. And the most incredible thing about when we read it was that they all automatically assumed that it was set during the Civil Rights Movement because they had never seen a picture book with an African American set today. And so it was like the first time that they could see themselves in a book, just like you were talking about with Snowy Day.
Yes.
And I just think it's so incredible, and I love that you said that you approached Daniel Beaty for it, because when I read it, I thought nobody else but you could have illustrated that book and told it the way. And the kids were noticing things in the illustrations that I didn't, like the face fading behind the elephants. I hadn't noticed it at first.
Oh.
They noticed it. And we actually watched the Daniel Beaty thing so many times, they all like memorized it. And so what you did was so important for my kids, and I love it. Thank you.
Thank you so much. That is wonderful. Does anyone else have a question about anything? I don't mind. Oh, yes, I see you, young man. Oh, well, I can. The bow tie, I just learned how to tie one, so that's what that's about. And so I said, well, let me get a few bow ties and get better at it. And in terms of the art itself, it's done in watercolor and collage. And I'm a collage artist mainly. And that was born out of my grandmother making quilts when I was a kid. She never said that I would be invited here to speak about books and my art. But I just bore witness to her piecing these things together. And we made preserves, strawberry preserves together. And so that's what that's about. She planted a seed. It was a silent gift that grew into a tree and is bearing fruit. That's what that's about. It's just something that gets into you. And all you need to do with our children, we don't have to force anything on them. Let them bear witness to as many things as they can. Something will catch. We don't know what it is. We can't predict what it is. But if we got to give them those experiences, they'll remember. Like the elephants, they will remember at critical times. And then the fruit and the seed will be ignited. And they will bear fruit. You will see. And so everything is done in watercolor and collage. I use whole families to pose for me, because I love bringing whole families together. And I said, we're going to make a book, and you're going to be the star of the book. Because I want that kid, the family that we used in this book, when this kid was born, he was about, I don't know, maybe 6 months old. We did another book called Welcome Precious with Nikki Grimes. That's the same kid. I went back to him when he was 11 to do this book. So he has 2 books that span his life, and I think that's a wonderful gesture and a legacy for him as well. And it also tells, more people tell the story. It expands the life of the book itself. So I enjoy the whole process from soup to nuts, and creating and letting it unfold, because family members, they do familiar gestures and body language. And so that's what the surprise that we get when we do these types of books. And I learned so much, and I have just a wonderful time doing it. It's a labor of love. Thank you for your time.
This has been a presentation of the Library of Congress. Visit us at loc.gov.